When you are making an offer with private sale, make it an odd amount.
All buyers really need to look at their level of flexibility.
Have an understanding of what it is that will get you the best chance of securing the property.
A lot goes into making an offer on a property, and often you do only get one shot at it. So how do you not stuff it up? Welcome to Real Talk, realestate.com.au's property news podcast. Today I've got two seasoned agents with me to discuss exactly what goes into making the perfect offer. Earlier today I did speak with some agents all over the country to get their take on it.
Price and simplicity. So start with the price, make it a strong one. Number two is remove all the uncertainty. So keep the conditions as simple as possible and deposit.
If they haven't found anything yet, it could be a long, say a 6-month settlement, but with an option to bring it shorter if the buyer finds something.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, ladies. Putting an offer on a property, it's a really nerve-wracking experience as a buyer, but you both deal with this every single day. So, Sarah, from a seller's perspective, what makes the perfect offer?
I think that it's really important that a buyer make it easy for an owner to say yes. And I think that there are a number of things that form part of a perfect offer. Either full price or above price for what they're asking, flexible settlement terms or the owner's settlement terms, full deposit, have a signed contract to 66W. So I think it all comes down to putting a full package to the owner and making it so they can say yes.
Tanya, how does a buyer even find out those elements before submitting an offer? So how would they get the intel on what their optimal terms are?
We always encourage buyers to ask lots of questions, and when they are inspecting the property, so questions like, have you employed a conveyancer? Have you got a building and pest inspector as well?
Do you think it's key to have the agent on your side?
Oh, absolutely. If you love this home, we want to help you buy it. And just have your ducks in a row before you come to the property as well. But we always share, these are the things that you need to do in preparation to make a good, strong offer to the owner.
I think it's also really important for a buyer to ask the agent what the seller's motivation is and why they're actually selling. Having an understanding of that and it can really help get the right deal or the right offer across.
Sarah, once you have the offer, as an agent, then what do you do? So I assume you probably need it in writing?
Every time.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you go and advise the seller.
So many times a deal will fall over if it's just based on price. And I think that I make sure that every time we have it in writing, whether that's the purchase price, the settlement terms, the deposit amount. So many times if you don't get that and everyone's on the same page, later down the track a deal can fall over. I also think that it's important to give clear guidelines to the buyer and the seller. Sometimes you're dealing with one owner, other times you're dealing with multiple owners. And so everyone's clear on what next steps might be, as well as how long it's going to take me to come back to you with an answer.
You just raised an interesting point because every situation is unique. And let's just say you were dealing with a deceased estate, for example. That is going to have multiple vendors attached to it because it could be multiple kids or sisters or brothers or whoever. Tanya, what are your top tips to let a seller know that you're serious? Is it going as far as signing a contract?
Oh, absolutely.
And having your check ready in their face?
Yep. So we don't present verbal offers ever. If it's not on a legally binding contract, it's not an offer. It's asking what are the optimal settlement terms. So would you like 30, 60, 45 days? Is there a specific date that vendor wants? I always say to my purchasers as well, when you are making an offer with private sale, make it an odd amount, because then that shows the owner that you have scraped together that last $1,450, which for me, when I'm presenting the offer, I can say to the owner, this young buyer has come up with a little bit more money because they want to pay for your conveyancing as well. And sometimes that can make a difference. And it also makes you, I guess, stand out if there are multiple offers. And we quite often have multiple offer situations as well, particularly with private sale. If a home's well priced, we then talk to the buyers about, how do you stand out? Yes, this seller he wants to sell. He's not testing the market. Quite often we get low ball offers come in. So that really takes a lot of coaching from an experienced agent to talk to the purchaser about what are the dangers of doing that as well.
Sarah, what do you have to say on top of that?
You look at the overall deal, and sometimes you can say to a buyer, what if you included something or excluded something from the sale? I know a number of our clients, particularly on development properties, if they have the ability to lease that property back when they're selling to a developer to give them the time to then go and find something else to buy, it's a win-win for both parties. So I think understanding each situation is really important.
What if a purchaser doesn't have as much money as their competition? Tanya, is there a way that they can make their offer seem more appealing than somebody else's?
You have to, again, ask the vendor what is the ideal settlement date. Also, make sure that we're only negotiating on price. We're not negotiating on terms. Back in COVID times when we were having multiple offers on properties, we would have lovely families write letters and include pictures of their kids. Yeah, and oh my gosh, but sometimes it does really make a difference to an owner knowing who they're selling to. And if it is private sale as well, and you can share the story of who the buyer is, that can help influence a vendor as well.
We've had stories of vendors selling to, say, a first home buyer instead of a family. And yes, the first home buyer had less money, but they're like, well, actually, we want to give this person, their first property.
Blocks of land. If the vendor knows that it's a lovely family or a first home buyer, they'd rather take a little bit less to make sure that their home isn't bulldozed over. Yeah. And all those family memories are there forever with the next, they're literally passing the baton to their next family to enjoy.
Something that I've found kind of puts a fire in someone's belly is a deadline. So I guess when you make your offer, Sarah, do you think it's actually wise for the buyer to give a firm deadline and say, my offer's only on the table for 24 hours? Or do you think that's shooting themselves in the foot?
I actually think that it's very powerful in some occasions and it can work for a buyer, but also it can put an owner off, or if it's not the right time for the offer, they may have every intention of going to auction and not looking to sell prior. So I always say, you read the play, speak to the agent, understand why they're selling, again, the motivation, and have an understanding of what it is that will get you the best chance of securing the property.
Tanya, do you think there's a better day of the week to make an offer? Because I imagine if somebody makes an offer on, say, a Friday night and you've got an open home on Saturday morning, probably not putting it through.
I think if somebody does do that, they're either trying to stop an auction, which is, hey, look, they think they're being smart by doing that. But I'll always coach a buyer to say, we can take your offer on Friday. That's no problem at all. And I'll present it, but I'm going to encourage the vendor to run that open for inspection. We do have registered buyers. And I see your strategy and I appreciate what you're doing. But at the end of the day, the vendor's job is to get as many people through so that we can present the best offers to the client. But please keep your offer there. We will treat it with respect. We will obviously present it straight away. It's not my choice. It's the vendor's choice. They may take that offer on a Friday night if it's a knockout blow. And I'll encourage the vendor as well. If it's something that's too good to be true, it's like, hey, take the offer. It's actually a really, really good one. And guess what? I've got no one registered to come to your open for inspection tomorrow. So let's go with it. But again, every situation is different. As agents, we have to read the play. We manage that campaign. So we know exactly what is a good offer, what's not. Is it worth taking tonight? Is it worth waiting until tomorrow? So it's always about us doing our job, which is making sure that, we're doing the right thing for the owner. The other thing with day of the week as well, if it is an auction campaign and we've got no interest and it's probably going to pass in, if somebody does want to try and stop that auction, we will make sure it's within the 3-day cooling off period. So either Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So what we're presenting to the owner is an unconditional offer and the sold sticker pretty much goes up straight away.
Sarah, what's the hardest negotiation that you've ever had and what happened?
My hardest negotiation, like all hard negotiations, 9 times out of 10, it is normally due to emotion. It's an emotional situation. And I had a lovely old lady that I was selling her home for. She'd lived there for 40 years. She built the home with her husband, raised the family there, and she spent a lot of time preparing the home to go to market. We had a cracking campaign. Like, we ticked all the boxes, great buyer activity, lots of offers. Every single time, though, that we went to exchange the contract or get the sale done, she would come up with a reason on why not to sell. And this went on. There was multiple times it fell over, and she had told me she had to sell first before buying. But when I actually sat down with her and understood that she was petrified of what her next home, like where she was going, I had to totally shift my attention from selling the home to trying to give her the confidence on where she was going and that she would have, there were lots of options for her for moving. Once I had done that, the lesson I learned is understand their motivation and why they're moving. And it helped. As soon as we found her a new place to buy, she was ready to sell.
Tanya, what about you? Is there a negotiation that you'll never forget?
There's nothing that really stands out. A former colleague that I'm still very good friends with, she was telling me once, which was it was absolutely extraordinary, the situation. She had this amazing offer that she presented to the vendor, but the vendor wouldn't take it because the lunar cycle was doing something weird. So this poor buyer had to wait 2 weeks to see if her offer was going to be accepted because the vendor wouldn't look at it until this. Yeah, it was just bizarre. But yeah, you do hear things all the time like that. But no, personally, no negotiation. That was really...
Well, I recently did an episode with a buyer's agent, and something that I took from that episode was that in this climate of really heightened buyer's competition, it can actually be really useful to employ a buyer's agent to kind of do the legwork on your behalf. Sarah, do you think that having a buyer's agent put in the offer for you gives you an advantage or not?
In the area that I work in, the Sutherland Shire, we haven't had the take up of buyer's agents as much as we have at our Double Bay office in the eastern suburbs or inner west. We are now starting to use them though, and I've always seen our role as a real estate agent as being a holistic role. I help my clients, whether it's buying, selling, leasing, projects, commercial. But what I would say is that when you do use a buyer's agent, if they're time poor, they live out of the area, they need someone to do the legwork for them, they're normally, wouldn't you agree, the transaction's normally really straightforward. There's no emotion. They know the area. They know the recent sales. I find it is a really good way to do business and have a clean transaction.
Yeah, there's really good buyer's agents and there's some bad ones. Yeah, there's some really bad ones as well, but the really good buyer's agents, I love working with them.
Same.
Yeah, absolutely love working with them. They really do make the whole process streamlined for the client. They know what to ask. They know what to do. The questions are always good and they're always sensible offers.
And they're educated.
Yeah.
And they know how, they just get the deal done.
Yeah, they're looking after their buyers, that's for sure.
And so do you think those good buyer's agents save their buyer money?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of the buyer's agents that we're working with now, if they see a property, they, like all buyers should, they'll move quickly, they'll let their intentions be known. And I think that sometimes they're saving the competition of what might eventuate.
And it's not so much saving the buyer money as well, but they're also saving the buyer time. That legwork of, bidding at auction can be quite nerve-wracking for a buyer as well. A buyer's agent will come in there and take over that role. So they're very, very, they're handy. And absolutely, if anyone was saying to me, I'm time poor, I can't go to open for inspections every week for, employ a buyer's agent. They know exactly the brief.
Particularly when you're moving from different areas as well, I think that it really does help.
Yeah, well, you could give them a brief, say, I need schools, I need this, I need that. And they go, great, I know where you can go. Tanya, are you seeing any interesting tactics lately from buyers when they're making offers?
I deal with a lot of first home buyers. So we get a lot of nerves when first home buyers are making offers. They're bringing their parents through and all these family members that are experts in real estate. And, the one thing I say to them is look, I respect what your parents are trying to do, which is guide and help you. But if you really like a home, just talk to me and I'll help you purchase it. There is a fair and reasonable price that you will have to pay. Again, we talk to them about sharpening up their special conditions, being flexible on settlement, as you mentioned earlier, doing some other things like offering to rent the property back to the owner until they find their dream home. That is a huge factor.
Yeah, I've learned all about leasebacks in the last week. I think it's super clever.
Yeah,
Sarah actually told me about it.
Yeah. We do it a lot where a buyer will come in and say, well, look, if the vendor is nervous about selling and they haven't purchased anything, what we'll do is we'll offer a license agreement so they can rent it back off us. We don't have a timeline. We're at home with mum and dad. So
I was about to say, if in the case of a first home buyer, if they are living with their family, there's a no pressure to go. So if it does help you secure a property to say, you know what, as the vendor, you can stay here until you purchase, like within a reasonable time period. It's not like stay here for the next year.
But it's very strong as a negotiation for a buyer.
Yeah. Sarah, what about you?
I think with the first home buyer, it's a lot of hand holding. They're nervous and they're not educated around what it is the process looks like. And it is helping them, whether everyone's different, getting their finance approved, engaging a solicitor or a conveyancer so that they can move quickly. They're ready to transact, because sometimes, particularly in that price point, it can escalate and move very quickly. So having all of their ducks in a row so that when the time is right to strike, they're ready to go and not be as concerned as what they were.
Sarah, what is your one piece of advice that you think all buyers should employ at the moment in this market while making an offer?
And it goes back again, not only for first home buyers, but I think preparation and moving as quickly as possible. So when I say preparation, they've researched the property and the history. So how long's it been on the market for? Have there been any offers? Is there any future developments with the property? Understanding the area and recent sales. But prior to all of that and submitting an offer to an owner, have you got your finance approved? Are you ready to sign unconditionally or attend an auction if you need to? Have you reviewed the building and pest and the strata report? These are all things that if you get that right and you're ready to go, moving as quickly as possible and being ready to sign a contract is very powerful.
And Tanya, for you?
Making an offer with confidence, having all your ducks in a row, making sure everything is nice, clean, 10% deposit. In Victoria, you can release a deposit prior to settlement.
Yep.
So actually sharing that with the vendor as well, that we have got a full 10% deposit. The purchaser is prepared to release that prior to settlement to help you with your deposit on your purchase. They're also flexible with settlement as well. And look, they're a lovely young family. I love sharing the story of who the buyer is with the client. I think that's really, really important. So I'll always question a buyer on who you are, what do you do, tell me a little bit about you, because I know this owner in particular, again, it might be a lovely older lady that's selling the family home, or it could be, this is a developer. We don't care who the buyer is, just give us all the money.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to each individual circumstance.
I think something also that I've taken from this episode since we've been talking is all buyers really need to look at their level of flexibility. And can you meet their ideal terms? Can you be so flexible in terms of, like, say, that lease back that we've been talking about? Like, it's not simply price.
No, but you know what? This is the most important time for a lot of people. They're buying what may be their one and only and greatest asset.
Yeah.
So as agents, we need to tell a buyer from start to finish, this is the process, this is how it looks. It's not just about signing the contract. And it is a little bit different post-COVID, because now we meet somebody at an open for inspection. They ring us and say, we want to make an offer. There's not a lot of face-to-face time sometimes. We used to bring them into our office and literally hold their hand and put a pen in their hand and you could see them shaking.
Yeah.
Now it's, they're literally tapping an iPad and doing electronic signature. So that's why I think communication for agents via phone, via FaceTime, whatever that looks like, even if it's just a text message, hey, I've presented your offer and we're expecting an answer this evening. So, as agents, we need to be cautious of keeping the buyer informed at all time as to what the process is and what the expectation should be around delivering and presenting that offer.
I always say to my team, it's now sold. So once the buyer, and particularly the first home buyers, any buyer, they've now purchased the property, what's next? So holding and educating them on the things that they need to do in preparation for settlement and to move in. We've got a concierge team for me, I think, and I think you guys
we have
do
a
as well.
concierge team, yep.
It's about helping them, I've bought this home, now what do I need to do?
Yeah, I have to say the agency who sold me my house, their help towards me came after the sale. Like they just text me about everything. Alice, we're doing this. Alice, we're doing that. Do you want to come here? Do you want to come there? And like they were just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, next steps.
You know what? All the agents I've spoken to have said that today about they take their responsibility as an agent really seriously, both to buyers and to sellers, because you guys are seeing people at their most vulnerable, at their most emotional, and you have a real duty of care.
Yeah, we've got to make the client experience very special.
And it's heightened, right? You go make an offer, buy a property. And then it's like the reality of what we've just done. It's scary, right?
Yeah, we don't want that buyer's remorse either.
No.
It's a wonderful house. It's beautiful.
But then helping them get as excited for settlement date.
Well, look, thank you so much for coming on the show. I actually think that buyers in market right now have probably taken some really good tips from this episode. So I really appreciate both of your time.
You're welcome. It was great. Thanks for inviting us.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining me. This has been Real Talk. For your weekly fix, please follow wherever you listen to your podcasts and tune in next time for more real questions, news and insights on the topics that matter most from realestate.com.au, Australia's #1 address in property. All information provided is general advice and opinion based on current market conditions. These opinions should not be treated as investment advice. Always obtain advice based on your individual circumstances.
Real Talk acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, air and community. We pay our respects to elders past and present.